Welcome back, boxing fans, to a late night boxing talk. So, I just listened to, once again, a guy completely lie and talk out of his ass. Talking about how I haven't talked about Brian Norman or Raymond Ford. Well, no, I do. I constantly have talked to them. Of course, Brian Norman, not as much as Raymond Ford, because he hasn't done as much as Raymond Ford. I literally was hyping up Raymond Ford's last fight against Ball. Whereas if you look at any of these American channels, LDBC, Ego, Dante, John, any of them, none of them, literally none of them, were talking about Raymond Ford making his first title defense against Ball, a guy people felt deserved to beat Vargas, right? And the whole card in Saudi Arabia. None of these guys talked about the card. Nonetheless, the Raymond Ford fight, I did. I talked about it. And then post-fight, I talked about how I felt Raymond Ford was robbed and deserved to win the fight. And then he brought up ESPN Black American fighters, young fighters. Abdullah Mason, Keyshawn Davis, and specifically, of course, Shushu Carrington. Because, of course, he's going to be using Shushu Carrington to hate on Inui, and so he's highlighting Shushu Carrington right now. And obviously, he did just have a very impressive performance on the undercard of Xander Zayas. Anyone that watches my channel, and that means he knows, but he's lying, says that, oh, I don't have dedicated videos to these fighters. What do you mean dedicated videos? So I make videos talking about these guys consistently, but because I don't have a dedicated video with their name in the content, with a picture of them, even though I probably do as far as short videos, somehow that's a criticism towards me. That's a criticism towards me. Because I talk about them all the time, but I didn't make a dedicated video to them. Yet, I have made dedicated videos about Keyshawn. I think I even made a dedicated video about Shushu. I don't know, because I talk about them so often that it's hard to remember if I made a dedicated video or if it was just in context with a video at their weight class or a fight card that they were involved in or some other sort of situation. But this guy literally came out and said, I don't even talk about these fighters. If I don't talk about them, then who on YouTube does? Who constantly is praising ESPN for the effort they make for building up young black, amateur fighters into the pro game? Only me. Consistently me. I praise Shushu all the time. Literally. Talking about how the kid is a really good kid, down to earth, really intelligent. When you listen to him break down boxing events, you can really respect what he's doing. And you can totally see him being a commentator in the future because the kid's really smart and well-spoken. As far as Keyshawn Davis, I always talk about Keyshawn and Abdullah Mason because these are two of the youngest, hottest, up-and-coming fighters in boxing. But someone's going to point fingers at me and say that, well, I don't talk about these fighters because I don't praise black American fighters, which is complete bullshit. When I talk about Brian Norman being hyped up off of the back of Xander Zayas, that's just a fact. That's literally what John did. He literally criticized Xander Zayas, the 21-year-old fighter, for fighting an ex-champion, while praising Norman for facing a guy who wasn't a champion. A guy who hadn't fought since 2023, whereas Teixeira fought in March. Right? But this is the delusion that comes from guys like this. Because he sees everything as racial, he's going to put a spin consistently on everything. Literally made a video pushing the same bullshit narrative that boxing revolves around America and that everybody needs to come to America and wants to come to America. This is the typical stupid American mentality, right? That they have no concept about the world around them. That's why dudes like this actually need to fucking buy a plane ticket and actually travel somewhere. They'd be much better off, because every time they open their mouth, they just show how ignorant they are. And this is the perfect example. When I talk about Top Rank, ESPN, and PBC fighters not being global because fight fans from around the world don't have easy access to these fighters, that's not anti-black, because PBC and ESPN have fighters from every single ethnicity. So why is it about black American fighters? Well, because this is John, and this is how he sees things. Everything is through a racial lens. The truth is, ESPN and Showtime are not global apps. You cannot watch them outside of America, meaning that you cannot get easy access to their events, any event, not just boxing, any event outside the US. And I complain that getting illegal streams is not the best way to watch fighting, boxing, because it's inconsistent. You can't necessarily get a great feed, a great stream. It cuts out. You know, it's just too much aggravation. And that's just a fact. You know this is true. For me, as a person living in Asia, I cannot watch these events unless I illegally stream them. That's just the reality. So how do you compare that to somebody fighting on DAZN, who literally people can watch from around the world on their smart TV, on their cell phone, on their iPad, on their computer, with a click of a button? You can't compare, because one is literally global access. The other one isn't. This is not hate towards anyone. This is just talking about the economics of boxing. But once again, you're talking to a guy who's ignorant, has to put a spin, a racial spin, on literally everything. Trying to act like I don't talk about black American fighters on ESPN. No, I do, all the time, consistently. I talked about Shushu Carrington's fight this weekend. You didn't see any of these other big American YouTube channels talking about the fight. They weren't building it up. They did not care, because there was no racial component they could twist and turn to entertain their subs, because of course they were too busy making videos about Gervonta Tank Davis, Ryan Garcia being arrested this weekend, and Devin Haney. Right, literally the same topic that they consistently talk about week in and week out. And you can go to all those channels and you can see they all have videos talking about Ryan Garcia getting arrested this weekend, as if that was boxing news. I didn't talk about it because who the fuck cares? It's irrelevant. I didn't talk about the last time Charlo got arrested either. Right? Because it's not boxing news. It's just fucking drama. And that's what these channels want. They don't care about boxing unless they can twist it and create drama. And John's the perfect example. Unfortunately, not successful on the same level as these other channels, but still pushing the same kind of bullshit. Making a fight about Xander Zayas having his big step-up fight somehow about Brian Norman, right? Like, how did Brian Norman even come into this conversation? Well, because John is trying to twist it into a racial narrative. Oh, people are not giving Xander Zayas the criticism he deserves for not getting rid of Patrick Teixeira. Does Xander Zayas deserve criticism because he didn't knock out Patrick Teixeira? Really? Who's knocked out Patrick Teixeira? At 154 pounds, Patrick Teixeira has never been knocked out. But Xander Zayas deserves criticism because he didn't do it, right? This is once again the stupid kind of twist and spin we see consistently, right? People are always heavily criticizing certain fighters to do what? Push this kind of racial narrative. And John is the epitome of it. Every video he makes is always about race. Boxing is used to push a racial narrative. John talks about dedicated videos on fighters. He's only going to make a dedicated video on a fighter if he can turn it into some sort of race narrative. He talks about me not talking about these fighters, yet I'm one of the only people on YouTube that actually does. All the channels he fanboys for, caps for and protects, literally never talk about these fighters. You never hear them talk about Abdullah Mason, Keyshawn Davis, unless they're criticizing Keyshawn Davis. They're not talking about Shushu because he's irrelevant at this point. But I'm the problem. You know, a dude like this has mental issues. It's the only way you can describe his infatuation with this whole topic and discussion. But leave your comments below. Thanks for watching. Remember to like, subscribe, and share, and I'll see you next time. And leave in the comment section, have you ever heard me praise and talk about a Shushu Carrington fight, post-fight, pre-fight, upcoming fight, Abdullah Mason, Keyshawn Davis, or any other black American fighter for any platform? If yes, give it a thumbs up. If no, give me the finger. Thanks for watching.